of things. One, I was about to smother sitting down there. I had to take my coat off. Anybody else in here hot, or is it just like all the donuts I ate? Somebody said I can get through my sermon like in half the time. I've got so much sugar in me, and I think that's probably right. I mean, like I can feel it. But anyway, y'all just have to kind of look around me today. Hey, thanks if you were here to go downstairs for Donuts with Dad. Thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for everybody who put work into that. That's always a cool time. Always enjoy that. I was sitting there during communion, and I had my head bowed, and I was thinking, and I could hear, I don't know if y'all noticed this or not, I could hear all of the voices of children through the auditorium. And it made my heart smile. And I know that it makes God's heart smile. And for those of you who are parents, and for bringing your children here and having them be a part of that, and just giving us the privilege of hearing those young voices, I want to say thank you. That always makes my heart really smile when I hear voices of children in the worship. And Father's Day, I've told you all this for years. I mean, this is like this is my 21st Father's Day sermon at Clarksville Highway. And Father's Day and Mother's Day, they're always really kind of difficult days for me to preach, just because of the range of emotions. But I was sitting there thinking this morning, I don't know if you were down at Donuts with Dad, but we asked you to bring your favorite hat. And so I brought this hat. It's a Memphis Tiger hat. This is probably the hats that I have, this is probably my favorite. When you think, babe, it's one that I have hung on to. If this can go viral, I mean, just so if it can, if y'all can make this go viral, I would love to have Penny Hardaway sign this hat. This hat I bought at Memphis at the Pyramid. It was the first game at the Pyramid. It was Penny Hardaway's first game, and Dad and I went with Uncle Herbert. And we snuck peanuts in, but that's not important that we broke the rules. But it's always been kind of a hat, just really because of the memories that go behind the hat. And when we start thinking about all the things about Father's Day and the things that we do, and I went to ChatGPT, and I said, what I need. I need a picture of a dad who loves a father, and it has 11 brothers who aren't nearly as happy about that as the dad was. And that was the description I put in ChatGPT. And ChatGPT came back with this image. You know, Jacob, arm around Joseph, and it's got these, and I love the brother in the middle. I mean, I just love his look, because he's like, I'm not really excited about that relationship Dad has with Joseph. The only thing, does anybody know trivia question, anybody know the only thing it got wrong about the picture? There is one thing that stands out, and I could not make it do it right. Anybody notice anything that's wrong with the picture? Oh, coat of many colors. Well, that's actually his coat of many colors that he has on. So it could have been a little brighter. That could be one thing. Anybody notice anything else about the picture that I think is wrong and you might not think so? All the brothers are older. There should be one younger brother somewhere. Benjamin, I think, should be in there somewhere. And I know we debate, is Benjamin born by the time that Joseph is sold into slavery? And Shaw going, no, I don't think so. And Shaw and I love each other. And I'm going, yeah, I think so. And it's okay, because Shaw and I can disagree on things like that and everything's good. But maybe there should be a younger brother. And I'm going to tell you that maybe there should only be 10 brothers, depending on how you want to figure the chronology of all of that. And so I started thinking about that, and we're doing Bible Bowl, and we're going through Genesis, and we're at Jacob and Joseph, and I'm going to preach on fathers and Father's Day, so I had to pick the Joseph-Jacob story, and so I'm supposed to preach on great dads, right? And you look at Jacob, and you think, maybe I should just preach on imperfect fathers. Maybe I should just preach on fathers that don't really get everything right. You ever felt like pressure to do something perfectly? Like you're going to do everything about it right? I don't think fatherhood is one of those things. I think perfection is an impossible expectation. Like, I know some of us are older fathers, and we're looking back on, having raised our kids and, and decisions that we made and things that we said. Like, did y'all ever say, if you do that again, I'm going to do so-and-so? Did any father ever said that? And you say that, if you do this again, I'm telling you what's going to happen. What does the kid always do? He does it again. And then what do you have to do? You have to do what you said, and you're thinking, man, I wish I hadn't said that, because now I got to do this, right? And so sometimes that imperfection of fatherhood, it just doesn't really match up. Some of us who are older, we're looking back thinking, man, I could have done a few things differently. Some of you who have, elementary through about to kick them out of house kids, right? I don't know how old get kicked out of house kid is either, by the way. That's subjective. You're kind of in the middle of it thinking, man, am I doing this okay? Then I look out today, and there are some that are like, they're like new fathers, and it's like they're just kind of like the beginning of that process. And you look at Jacob, and you think, man, not only did Jacob do this thing where he wasn't really perfect, but what was his family history? How about his dad? Made some pretty big parenting mistakes. Like, right? Y'all can go with me through the chronology, right? So you got Jacob, who's his dad? Isaac, how many sons Isaac have? 2, that kind of consume Scripture. Jacob and Esau, right? How did that parenting relationship work out? Dad have a favorite, and Jacob saw how that all got messed up, right? And so then Jacob comes along, and what does Jacob have? He has a favorite. And you would think he would look at his dad and say, well, I don't want to do that because, Dad did that and he really messed everything up. I think I'll do better. But he does exactly the same thing. And you look to grandfather. Who's grandfather? Abraham. Thank you, Kara. Hang in there, girl. Abraham. And so you got Abraham. And how did he do with parenting? Well, decent, but not great, right? So there you've got Ishmael and Abraham, Isaac, right? Boy, it's tough when you get old. You can't remember all this stuff. And you look at that and you think, well, man, it's just like kind of an impossible kind of thing. And you've got this situation with him where you've got this favoritism. He has one child that everybody knows he loves that child more. I mean, you don't have to talk around it in Scripture. Scripture is really clear. He had a favorite, and it created problems. Like, what kind of coat did he give him? Well, it was the coat of many colors, right? And it could be that it had really vibrant colors. That's one possibility of understanding that word. Another one is that it was just like highly decorated. Like it was like, I think you can use this word in the sermon, it was gaudy, maybe. Like you just think about just the craziest thing you can imagine. He wanted to make sure that son would kind of stand out, and he did something really, really special for him. And it created a problem. He wasn't a perfect dad. And then there are those times where not only are you not a perfect dad, but then you find yourself in these situations that you didn't create. Like you're faced with a parenting decision. For example, I can't make this thing right. Joseph brought a bad report about his brothers. Now, I don't know what kind of bad report he brought. I don't know what his brothers did. But it just says Joseph brought a bad report. How did his brothers think about that? Well, that's not very good for family dynamics if you start telling on your brothers. But there are these situations we have, and even as fathers, we run into these situations that we didn't create. We're just faced with dealing with them. So if you're a father, have your kids ever done something you didn't expect them to do, and then you're faced with trying to figure out as a parent, how do you want to react to that? And then Do you ever stop and think about all the things that your kids do or have done that you don't know about? We're sitting at the dinner table one night. Me, my brother, mom, dad, the boys. I think we're pretty much all sitting there. I don't remember all of those details. Hot baby's doing like this, so I got that right. And my brother's not nearly as smart as I am. Just so y'all know, and if y'all want to send this to him, it's okay. He's a little bit older than me, so maybe he was getting senile. I don't know. And he said, yeah, it's like when we used to climb up on the fire tire and throw the model airplanes off. And I'm like, you're not supposed to say that. Right? Because Dad never knew we climbed up on the fire tire to throw model airplanes off. And I remember sitting at the table, Dad looked up and he said, y'all did what? And Daryl said, oh, we used to climb up on the, and I'm going, hey, we could climb up on the fire tire, throw the airplanes off. We would build them and put like glue and paper and stuff inside them and light a fuse on them and throw them off so they would like burn as they're going down and then explode before they hit the ground. It's really kind of cool. We do it with boats too as you float them down the creek. But he didn't mind us floating them down the creek, but climbing up on the fire tire, that was something else, right? We weren't supposed to be up there. And I remember Dad, and I had to be, this was like maybe 10 years ago, babe. Like I'm in my 50s. And Dad said, I ought to bend both of your boys over right now and give you a whooping. And I thought, if he says to, I will out of respect for him, but I'm not really excited about getting a whooping as a 52-year-old, and I'm not really excited about my brother telling him what we did. But have you ever found yourself as a father, it's in a situation you didn't create, and you're trying to figure out how to react to it, and some of you are nodding like this because you've been there, and some of you aren't yet, but you will, because you will find that situation. And then the dreams. Man, just the dreams. Your kid shows up and says, oh, I had a dream. Oh, I had a dream all of y'all bowing down to me. And how did that make the brothers feel, by the way? They don't like him anyway. And if he shows up and says, well, one day y'all all going to bow down to me. You know, we're out in the field and everything bows down. It's like, And then he has another dream, right? And everything's bowing down to him. And even Dad says, now come on, son. You think your mother and I are really going to bow down before you? And brothers hated him. But do you remember what the scripture says? His father kept it in mind. His father knew there was something about that story that was probably going to make sense. And he remembered it. He didn't forget. Yeah, this is jumping way ahead in Genesis, but you wonder years later when he thinks that Jacob thinks Joseph is dead and he finds out he's alive and Joseph is going to move him down to Egypt and take care of him, if that dream popped in Jacob's head and he said, man, I remember that dream. You think at the moment that Joseph shows up and says, let me tell you about my dream, Dad, you think that Jacob had a really clear understanding of God's story for Joseph's life? You think there is any way in the world he saw that winding river of circumstance that was going to happen before God got Joseph right in the situation that he wanted him to be? Because I don't think Jacob had a clue. I don't think he understood at all exactly what was going to happen to his son. I don't think he understood all of God's story. Sometimes that just makes me pause as a father. And I wonder, man, what is God's story for my child? Not my story. Not what I have, not what I've conjured up in my head that is exactly how the boys' lives are supposed to go. Not even their own story for their life. Not even what they imagine in their life is what their life is supposed to be. But you pause and you just ask, what is God's story for my child and all of that? And that's a very difficult question to answer. It says his brothers, let's try to advance this slide, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Have you ever had a child who comes up and tells you about something they're going to do? Like they lay out their plans. Like, hey, this is my dream. This is what I want to accomplish. This is what I'm going to want to do. And you're sitting there. Have you ever had somebody who, maybe not even a child, but somebody who gives you like a timeline of how things are going to happen in their life? Like this is not really parenthood, but it is parenthood. Okay, let me explain that. I have two sons who are biological sons, who are my sons by marriage to Hot Babe, and they are my sons. I have a plethora of kids who are sitting in this auditorium and have always sat in this auditorium, and I've watched them grow up, and I've watched them have plans and dreams and things that they wanted to do, and I honestly do. If y'all don't know this, I consider all of you like my kids. Not the adults, not people who are older than me, but kids that I have seen grow up, right? Not to call her out or anything. Like, I hugged Olivia this morning and I said, hey, how's one of my adopted daughters? Right, because as Olivia has gone through life, Olivia, we have shared a lot of moments, haven't we? And that's not singling Olivia out. Many of you are like that, and you sit down and say, well, I want to do this and this and this, and I've had lunches with you and listened to your plans and listened to your stories, and then you try, not just as a parent to biological children, but as a parent to spiritual children, you're trying to encourage their dreams and at the same time keep them grounded in what is reality. And I wonder sometimes that Jacob as a dad, like how he responded to those dreams to keep him grounded, but also to understand that maybe God's plan was so much greater than he could see that he really didn't know where all of that was going. And I think for us as parents sometimes, one thing that we have to remember is we have to remember God in the brokenness. We have to remember God when everything isn't going exactly right. And we don't make every perfect decision. Or our kids don't do exactly what we think they ought to do in the way that we think they ought to do it and when we think they ought to do it. Or as fathers, we look at ourselves and we think, how is all of this working out with God's plan? Now, I'll be really transparent with you in the way that I look at text, okay? And sometimes I kind of struggle through understanding text. So I look back at Jacob and Joseph, and I think, man, he really messed that up, because if he hadn't shown favoritism, the family dynamic wouldn't be as messed up as the family dynamic got messed up. You know, he should have known better, and he should have known better because his dad did the same thing to him. Y'all hear me preaching that? But I'm very honest with that story, knowing that if Jacob had not done what he had done in the way that he did it, even if it was showing favoritism, his brothers wouldn't have hated him. They wouldn't have thrown him in the pit. They wouldn't have sold him into slavery. He wouldn't have ended up in Potiphar's house. He wouldn't have ended up in Pharaoh's court because he interpreted the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer, and he wouldn't have been there to save the whole family when a famine hit. And then I think, well, man, was the favoritism messed up, or did God just create it? Because God needed Joseph to be where he needed Joseph to be when he needed Joseph to be there. And even Joseph understood it, because when he was talking to his brothers, I know we're jumping ahead in Genesis, just hang on. When he's talking to his brothers, what does he say? You intended it for harm, but God intended it for good. How many times in our brokenness is God right there with us every moment and every step? We look at Jacob and say, man, that was some bad parenting. And then I look, how much was bad parenting and how much was God's design? How much was it God working in their lives to make sure that God's purposes were met? Now, I put this next phrase up here, and when I put it up there, I thought, this front section right here is probably not going to have any idea what that means. Don't wallow in mistakes. Don't wallow in mistakes. Now, how many, maybe an age thing, may not. I'm just going to do a show of hands, interactive sermon for a second. If I say don't wallow in mistakes, how many of you get a mental image? Bunch of old people. Except for a few people who grew up on a farm, right? What in the world does that mean? Olivia, you have any clue what that means? Brooke, you got any idea what that? Brooke's like, I ain't got any clue what you're talking about, Mr. Greg. How many of y'all grew up in like rural, farmy type communities? Or that had animals? How many of y'all seen a pig like wallow in the mud? That's what that means. What does a pig do when he wallows in the mud? Ooh, he just gets in there and he loves it in there. Man, he just gets moved. I guess it's because it's cool. I don't know. I've never had the audacity to ask a pig while he was doing it in there. But he gets in there and he just wallows and he rolls and he just lays in the mud and he's just happy as can be in there. How many of y'all know people who love to they're just happy as can be talking about all the stuff he did wrong? Just staying in their mistakes. Boy, they just love telling everybody how many mistakes they made. They just like being in it. I don't know what they like about it, but they just like being in it. If you ever made a mistake that after you made it, you were thinking, boy, that wasn't really smart. And then the hardest part of the mistake was trying, not that somebody else would forgive you, it's that you could forgive yourself and move past the mistake and you could move to another spot instead of staying in the bad spot that you were in. Any of you ever been there? Don't stay there. Don't stay there. It's easy for us sometimes when we make a mistake, we just stay there. And we will spend times talking about, man, you remember, man, I'm sorry I did so-and-so. I messed that up. And learn from your mistakes. Just don't wallow in your mistake. You know what I love about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And even Joseph. Do you remember? I mean, you think it stops at Joseph, right? Joseph says, well, God intended it for good, and y'all intended it for bad. And you think they got all of that laid out, and everything's good, except when his dad starts to bless his two sons, and he crosses his hand and and he's blessing the younger one instead of the older one. What does Joseph try to do? Y'all remember this? Way back in the book. You probably read this far. Oh, you're getting it wrong, Pop. Let me switch your hands. And he's like, I know exactly what I'm doing. You leave me alone. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Boys, there's a pattern there of imperfect fathers. You have a whole pattern, biblical pattern, of fathers who didn't get everything right. You know what God does with families who has imperfect fathers? He fixes them. He uses them. He uses the children in spite of the father's mistake. God does not need your perfection. God can design and plan in spite of it. And in spite of your mistakes, in spite of your messing up. So when we get here on Father's Day and we start talking about how perfect all of you fathers are supposed to be, this morning I just wanted to get up here and say, you know what? You don't have to be. You don't have to be perfect. But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all had one thing in common. Do you know what that was? They had this intense desire to pursue their relationship with God. And of all the characteristics you can have as a father, of all the self-help classes you can go to, of all the books that you can read, of all the people you can go to get advice, I think the most important thing for fathers is for fathers to have a passion to serve their God and their children to see that passion. I don't want you to leave thinking, man, Greg got up and told me got to be perfect. No, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. And that's not just a message for fathers, isn't it? And a message for all of us. What does God need from you? Does he need your perfection? Man, we've talked about this at Clarksville Highway. Does God need people who say, well, now I get my life straightened out, I'm going to go find Jesus? You do know that's messed up, don't you? Like, you don't get your life straightened out and then go find Jesus. You find Jesus, and Jesus helps you get your life straightened out. If you're going to do it by yourself, you don't need him. But the reality is you can't do it without him. So we get another, right? We get the cart before the horse. I got to get newer phrases. Like, you get the charger before the electric car or something. I don't know. So you do that kind of stuff. And so, you know, whether you're a father and you're looking at your imperfection, or you're a mother and say, man, that'd been a great Mother's Day sermon. I kind of got my own imperfection of my own. Maybe you're a kid who's like, well, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff my dad don't know that I did, and I probably need to get Jesus to see if he can't fix that before my dad finds out. This is a total aside. All right, don't want to embarrass my father at all, but it probably will. For some of you who were sons, did you ever not do anything because your worst fear was your dad would find out that you did it? And you knew if dad found out what you did, it was not going to be good. Like, that was the very last thing that you wanted. Now, I don't want to go off on another theological tangent because I don't have time for a second sermon. I'm just going to tell you, I think in some ways our culture has lost a healthy respect of who God is. And I will tell you that as a believer in Jesus, there are some things I don't want to do because I don't want my father to find out. And I don't mean the father who's sitting back there almost at the back of the auditorium. I mean the father who is on his throne in heaven and not only understands my actions, but knows the motivations behind my actions. But I can also tell you this. You will never find a more loving father than the one who is sitting on his throne in heaven. And are you a son or daughter this morning who is in a great relationship with your parent? Or are you a prodigal and need to find your way back home? And if there is anything we can do to help you do that, we're going to ask you to respond while we stand and sing.